Welcome to another Color With Me session. I'm going to try to see how far I can get with this in 20 minutes. Oh, 20 minutes from saying that. I don't think we'll finish it tonight in that time, but see how far we can get and see what we talk about during that time. So I did have someone send me some topics, some questions to talk about during the video. So one of those was if there was any subject in a coloring book that I could color, what subject would it be? Obviously, I really like my mandalas. It doesn't have to be mandalas. I mean, I love mandalas, but it's the patterns. That's what I love. I love seeing patterns and details and things. So really anything with a pattern is great. I like stuff that I can be more creative with. I struggle. I'm working on it, but I struggle with things that are more defined, have an element of realism to them, because I like more whimsical palettes. I like the colorfulness of this. I like occasionally doing single color or single color tone, like an all pink or all blue design, things like that. And that's harder to do in something, for me at least, harder to do if there are things that my brain recognizes as actual objects and wants to make them the color that knows those objects are. But I like, been looking at a lot of coloring books lately. I picked up a few new ones, but I like doing things like the animals that are divided into geometric shapes. That reminds me of the books that I first got started with, Images by Roger Burroughs, which may or may not still be in print. I haven't looked recently. Those were a lot of fun. So yeah, I would say I'm open to trying anything, but sometimes I look at the books and I'm like, oh, I don't know how that would work with the fountain pens and stuff. That actually leads to another question that I was asked, which had to do with what other media would I consider using. Sorry, there's a lot of ums today. That happens a lot when I don't really have things thought out to what I'm talking about. I do like how this gold is working with these colors. It looks nice. So I have done a lot of other media in my coloring. I have done and have returned to more recently colored pencils. I have done fine line markers. I have done brush tip markers. I have done gel pen, specifically glitter and metallic, sparkly and shiny. I have, that would be what we're hearing from us. Glitter, lots of glitter, all the glitter. I have recently thought about, or some of the books that I've seen, where colored, the fountain pens would be good for certain aspects, but there's so much that is like sort of grayscale area that I feel like fountain pen just really wouldn't work in pen form, but the inks might, would be sort of doing a watercolor like brush application with the fountain pen inks. Um, I've done, I haven't really done pastels in a coloring book, I think because they would smudge too easily. I have worked with pastels before. I haven't done acrylic markers. Um, that might be interesting. Um, yeah, I've done a lot. I'm always willing to try them again. I just find, honestly, my biggest problem with a lot of pens and markers out there right now is the expense for the consumability. Not saying my fountain pens are cheap by any stretch, although you can get less expensive ones than what I have. But you can, they're refillable, and the bottles of ink will last you an incredibly long period of time. As opposed to a lot of these markers where you're spending a lot of money on markers that have a defined lifetime. Um, and it's not something like this pen, which is, 100 years old. Um, this is like from the 20s, I think, 1920s. So I think that's part of why I gravitate towards fountain pens, is that they're going to be around forever. Um, they have been around forever. We keep coming up with new things like gel pens and roller balls and alcohol markers and acrylic markers and all this other stuff, and we always have had fountain pens. Maybe not always. I mean, at some point we only had, etchings and stone tablets and, you know, using charcoal to draw pictograms, but fountain pens have been around, quill pens have been around for longer than pretty much any other writing instrument. One, two, three, four. So yeah, I mean, if there's a medium that you think would work well with my style, or that you think I should try, I'm more than happy to look into it. I just haven't really um, put much thought into it, honestly. Other than, like I said, I have been considering recently the idea of, for some where there's much bigger areas, or sort of those grayscale sort of things that look like they could use like a wash, using a brush with the fountain pen ink directly, and just kind of creating that wash over them to add the color without the, that's what I'm looking for, the more the opacity that using a fountain pen might provide, depending on the fountain pen tip. Now, if I was using one of these Fude nibs, it probably would give that same wash feel, but I would have to be very deliberate and meticulous in that application, because as you can see with this, it is this will leave like a little ink puddle, despite how much it is sort of just washing into that space. So that's definitely one of the reasons that I've thought about the brush instead. And I think that could be cool. A lot of people paint with fountain pen inks. This would just sort of be a very specific type of painting, because the canvas would be pre-drawn. I don't know. What are your thoughts? You're watching. 20 minutes goes by remarkably fast sometimes. I always feel like I should accomplish more in 20 minutes, but sometimes with these designs, I don't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That wasn't too loud. That was my rings catching on my desk. Let's see, what else can we talk about today? There's lots of questions on that list that was sent to me, and I'm trying to break them up over a few videos. I don't want to run through them all so quickly. But thinking about the media question, I think right now I'm just enjoying exploring the combination of fountain pen and colored pencil, but also just figuring out my fountain pens and what designs, what pages, what artists they work with, what they can and can't do. And when I talk about like that, those grayscale areas and things like that in some of the books that I've seen, what I'm afraid of is like, if I were to use a color like this, for instance, straight out of the pen, and potentially straight out of the ink bottle, this is such a heavy color. It's gorgeous. It's such a heavy color that it would mask any of those gorgeous details that would be in there. So if I would just color over that spot and sometimes trying to follow those very fine, wispy details that make up an area that is kind of grayscale, but not entirely, can create more confusion than anything. So you kind of just want to like take something, and that's where colored pencils, for instance, are really good, or your more transparent markers like your alcohol markers, where those lines are going to show through. But something like this, that ink is just gonna cover all of those lines. But I was thinking that if I were to use it more like a watercolor ink or paint, and dip a brush in it and sort of spread it out, that might work. And obviously certain inks will work better than others. There would be some trial and error, but I think that could be fun for the right book with backgrounds. I'm also looking forward to starting to play with inks a little bit more. I recently got a bottle of an ink that I don't want to call it bad, even though that's what my friends and I have been calling it. It didn't, it was supposed to sheen, and it wasn't sheening. And I did reach out to the manufacturer, and they confirmed that there was a bad batch of that particular ink and that I must have gotten one of those bottles. So a friend of mine did find me a new one that is behaving correctly. But now I have this other bottle that doesn't have the properties I wanted. So I've added some micro pearl, which gives it a shimmer. But I've been thinking about picking up some other additives that will add to that, the dimensions of it. So the shimmer, the micro pearl that I put in gave me like a gold shimmer to it. But there's additives out there that I can put in that will add a purple shimmer or a green shimmer, or I can add both as long as I'm not overdoing it, so that it becomes so heavily shimmered that it instantly would clog the pen. I could have a lot of fun creating sort of my own custom color that would be unique to me. That sounds like fun. Trying to get better about remembering that I can turn the page and not put my arm in uncomfortable positions while I color, or potentially block the view of what I'm coloring. The nib on this pen is an Ultra Flux, and sometimes it behaves super well, and other times it's a little scratchier than I'd like. But I think part of that is I have a very, very glittery, shimmery ink in it. I think sometimes it really just needs to be cleaned. So it gets all that glittery goodness caught up in there. And has a harder time letting the inks out. And I was being good at one point about putting a little thing of water here by my coloring setup to help with that. I forgot to do that today. Have to just try to get it with a paper towel. Seemed like we got it. Just a little bit. Probably check the ink level too. I think there's enough in here. Yeah, we can do a little priming. See if that helps. Gotta be careful. I once primed live during a TikTok and had an ink explosion. And that is our 20-minute mark. So I'll be back with another video. But that's how far we got in 20 minutes. And I hope you enjoyed that little bit of conversation with me. Thanks. And like, follow, subscribe, whatever those things are if you enjoyed. And feel free to catch me on Twitch if that's your thing too.